Well, good morning, everyone, and Scott, good morning.
Good morning.
Scott and I had a chance to chat back in the green room where we were talking about our past experiences, and he happened to mention he is retired Navy, and of course I'm retired Air Force, so there's no inter-service rivalry here.
Step right over here a little bit.
That's always going to be a standing joke between anyone who served. That's kind of the thing. And Scott, if you don't mind, if you could just tell the audience, first of all, what is a federal what is it? What is an FSD? What does it mean?
Federal Security Director. There's probably 89 of us nationwide. Used to be about 120. We've knocked it down. Responsible for the airport security at all the 450 airports across the country. So, that's basically my job each morning is to make sure that the passengers going through are safe, cargo is safe, baggage are safe, and the airplanes take off and land at the same spot they're supposed to.
And if we talked about the role of the FSD with respect to not just the mission, but about with the size of the airport, can you explain exactly what is a Category X? What does that mean in terms of size and volume? And how does that impact your role as the FSD as well as the personnel who work under you, who do the mission every day?
Yeah, so Cat X Airport is there's Cat X, Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cat X Airport is basically a fairly large airport that has international departures, arrivals to a certain level. I'm not sure what that level is, but it's like I said, there's 28 nationwide. Washington Dulles being one of them. DCA is a Cat X. BWI is a Cat X. It all depends how many enplanements per day, how many takeoff and landings, and a lot of international. As Dulles is international. So. If I can, real quick, just talk a little bit.
Yes.
So I love being a panel of one, by the way. I think this is great. So bear with me. I'm gonna start it off, and it's gonna generate, I think, some discussion, and some questions. And I'm probably gonna walk down here if you don't mind.
Oh no, please. Just don't trip.
Because I have to do that. I can't sit there and talk. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Yes. All right. So let me just talk a little bit about Washington Dulles, Cat X Airport. Yesterday, we did about 27,500 people went through the screening checkpoint. On a good day, a really busy day in the summer, 35,000. Anybody travel out of Dulles? Probably a lot of people. Everybody pre-check? If you're not pre-check, please get pre-check. And I know I'm going to hear the discussions. People go through the other lanes faster than the pre-check lane. Yep, sometimes that's probably true because of the crowds. Thursday afternoons, don't travel out of Dulles. That's our big time. We'll do 4,300 people in an hour. That's big for us. That's big for any airport. But like I said, 35,000 in the summertime, 19,000 in the wintertime on a slow day. LAX does 125,000. It kind of puts you in perspective. At JFK, about 85, 95,000, 100,000 on a busy day. Other airports like Portland or Portland, Maine, they do about 2,000. Big deal, right? Why do I mention Portland, Maine? Of all the airports, 450 airports in the country, why would I mention Portland? It's where the terrorists took off out of to get into this system. They came up and they scoped out that airport, and they looked and they went, we can probably get in this system through this little airport here. Sure enough, they did, and they went in, and we all know what 9/11 happened. So, 27th of March, 2019, 0500 in the morning. Anybody know what happened that time? Just a couple days ago, right? Guy comes up to Washington Dulles in a stolen U-Haul van, parks out front, walks down to the same locations I walk 20 times a day. Walked around baggage claim 1. Anybody travel United and go to baggage claim 1? He walked around baggage claim 1 and scoped it out for about 30 minutes. And then he walked over to a door over here that gets into the secure area. And he was waiting for somebody to go in to that door so he could piggyback behind him. He was going to sneak behind him and go in that door. United employee said, whoa, who are you? And he goes, I don't know. Don't I go in this door here to go out into the smoking area or whatever? He goes, no, get out of here. Pushed him away. So he went over to our checkpoint. And he walked down to the checkpoint, and he stood there, and he looked around, and he goes, I'm going to try to sneak through the checkpoint. Then he looked, and he realized he couldn't get past that first line there that says, can I see your boarding pass, please? He couldn't go past that. So he goes to the next checkpoint. He tries to do the same thing. He was trying to get into the system, and he couldn't. And plus, by the way, he wanted to take that U-Haul van and ram it into people out at Dulles, and he couldn't do it. So what did he do? Went to National Harbor. What did he do down there? He did the exact same thing. He scoped it out. He was trying to ram that van into people.
Was he going to valet park something as well?
Yeah, he took the van up to valet parking, and he got out.
A real rocket scientist.
Yeah, a stolen U-Haul van. Hey, would you park this for me? Sure. So there you go. Is there a threat? Absolutely there's a threat. If this guy would have been smart, he would have had a gun, or he would have had an explosive in that van. And think of Washington Dulles, that glass, if that van would have been filled with explosives and go off. So the threat is real. So the important part of that is, was he on an airplane? No, he was in the public area. So when I start talking about different things at Dulles Airport, we have the security, obviously the requirement going through the checkpoint, right? And all the bags. So if I do 35,000 people a day, 80% of those people will have a bag. A check bag that has to be screened. That has to be screened. The technology that screens that bag is EDS, Explosive Detection System. It picks up explosives in the bag. It's really nice. We are now, the deputy administrator talked about it this morning, we are now taking that technology up to the checkpoint. So the old x-rays that go through and it has a gun and it has all sorts of other stuff we can see, now all of a sudden we have an MRI image of a bag that the TSO, the officer, can manipulate around, look at it, and go, that looks like a laptop, and it's not been tampered with. Let it go. That's a great technology for the future as we go on. Some other stuff that we deal with out at Dulles. So let's talk, besides, I have 750 people out there that work for me. They do screening, they do cargo, they make sure that the cargo screening is being regulated. We have canines, we have the dogs out there. Anybody go buy a dog at Dulles? So there are passenger screening canines. So as you walk around and I have a bomb on me, guess what's behind me? This wake behind me, this wake of a bomb odor. And the dog can pick that up. They're pretty good. Are they 100%? Probably not, but they're pretty good. So if I had a dog in here right now, if I had a dog walking around, and this is just me, I'm going to test the audience, by the way. I'm going to ask some questions here. If I had a dog walking around right now, and we shut the door in the back there, and that dog went from table to table to table and didn't alert on anybody, you think we should all go fly without being screened? Yes. Why not? I don't think you have a bomb on you. So Scott Johnson, would say, that's a pretty good technology to let all of us go on that airplane. You just got screened. You got screened by a dog, right? Now, we don't do that, right? We let the dog screen you, and then we let my officers screen you as you go through. But that's the different roadmap, layers of security that the administrator talked about earlier, that as you go through the different processes going out to your airplane, you go through all sorts of different layers. Back in 2009, remember Abu Muttalib? The microphone going off here. Abu Muttalib was the young man that had the underwear bomb. The underwear bomb, if you've never seen it, was about that big. If anybody had a bottle of water, there's a bottle of water over there. It's about that size. That's the size of the underwear bomb. He had it up in his groin, almost brought down the airplane in Denver, right? Detroit. He didn't. He caught his groin on fire. Yeah, that was about it. And what happened? Passengers beat him up. What happened to Richard Reed? Passengers beat him up. Passengers are our last line of defense, by the way, if you don't know that. I was sitting over here doing some texting earlier while the panel was up here discussing, because I had a text that there was, and this happens all the time, there's disruptive passenger on a flight from Tampa to somewhere else. Happens all the time. Why is it? Usually alcohol, right? Some people panic. And this person was in the airplane with the laboratory door, slamming the door, kept slamming it. Like, what's up with that? You know, the passengers grabbed him and they restrained him to the seat. So it's the last one, I just read that. But anyway, Abu Muttalib goes through, and what did we do? We invented this machine, the AIT, Advanced Imaging Technology, and we keep improving that technology to find that bomb, to find the anomaly on the body that allows us and I know everybody loves this part, to do a pat down to find out if that individual has a bomb up in their groin. Man, that's a tough thing. If you're law enforcement, you're going to find that bomb. If you're an officer in TSA, you're going to have a hard time putting your hand up there to try to find out if there's something up there. Even though the machine says there is something, I got to find that up there. So the technology keeps improving. We're rolling out at Dulles a thing called CAT, Credentialing Authentication Technology. Get your ID card, your driver's license, you put it in the machine, comes out, 2 to 6 seconds later, it says, this person's on the United Flight 123 leaving Dulles at this time. Of course, it might say it's not Dulles, it's DCA. That happens all the time, by the way. But that's pretty quick. My officer's up there right now. When you hand a boarding pass, 10 to 12 seconds. That's what I expect. I expect them 10 to 12 seconds to look at the boarding pass, look at the ID, verify it, and off you go. You can kind of put that through, how many per minute goes through, per hour goes through. Now we go over to MWA's technology with facial recognition. We piloted it at TSA. I'm a firm believer in this. We got to just move it forward. Let's get going with this technology. Person walks up and boom, a green light comes on as you're walking up. Seconds, 1 second, half a second. Now all of a sudden, instead of putting maybe 6 people through per lane per minute, now we're talking 20 people through a lane per minute. But what does that do for us on the other end? Now we got to get some technology on that other end to get the people through the x-rays and everything else so we can get them on the planes faster. Why is that we put them on the planes faster? Less lines, because that's a vulnerability. The young man at 5 o'clock in the morning the other day, if he had a machine gun down in his pocket, nobody knew about it, went down to a line, and he'd go, okay, there's 500 people here, watch this. He has 5 minutes before he's going to be taken down by law enforcement to shoot everybody he can. So that's the threat out there. I'm sorry that I got carried away with this stuff, but I need to talk about Dulles so we can get on the panel, and then Chris can ask me all sorts of questions. But yeah, sorry.
I'm actually having fun listening to you. I mean, if anyone ever doubted the critical role the FSD has, you just learned it right here. I mean, he's the CEO basically, and he's running a major operation. He's running a community. You know, and the TSA plays a very important part in. And Scott, much of what you talked about with respect to, you know, your officers and the critical role they play. How and going back to the previous panel that we had, and with John with Customs and Border, tell us about the interface between TSA and CBP and how important that handshake is.
Yeah, so the handshake on that side of the house, we're the two, well, I can't say we're just the two federal agencies. We have FBI, we have Secret Service, we have ICE, we have CBP, TSA out there. Between the two organizations, I think we're starting to see the synergy, especially when it deals with the facial recognition. Because the database CBP has, and John talked about it with the faces off of passports, off of visas. If we mix that with the databases that TSA has with driver's licenses, next thing we have this facial recognition that we can go out and tap millions of people with facial recognition using both of those. On probably, well, right now as we speak, TSA, CBP, and all the airlines and airports are and MWA, the airport authority at Dulles, are meeting on a monthly meeting. And they sit down, they talk about different things. For CBP and TSA, they will use us we have some legislative authorities that CBP doesn't. CBP has some that we don't. And so where we usually come together is out at the gate. So when a passenger goes through us and gets screened, they will arrive at the gate, and we will have, we call it a play, that we might say, hey, sir, can we see your boarding pass? Just to check real quick. Can I see your hands, please? I'm going to trace your hands for explosives. Then the next step, they go to CBP, and CBP will ask them different questions, but that's where we usually interact, right there at the gate.
And it's interesting because in terms of the airport, in terms of moving passengers through and the handshake that occurs between the various federal agencies, the technology piece, which you alluded to here, talked about, in fact, in our previous panel, we talked about the importance of facial technologies. Do you see that as a significant force multiplier, for
Yes.
lack of a better term, for pass-through for passengers?
Yep, absolutely. So I already talked about it, how many seconds it takes for a human to look at a boarding pass and an ID. And then how fast it takes for the new CAT machine to look at an ID, and how fast it takes technology to look at a face. Anybody that has an iPhone 10, I think, is facial recognition. You pick it up and it's on. What is that? A nanosecond. It's the same thing with this technology that they use out there using the Apple iPad. The exact same theory of putting people through quicker, and it's not necessarily always just quicker, it's more secure. You can't fake that face. And so you can fake an ID, kinda. We usually catch them when they do that. You can fake a boarding pass. This young man that came out the other day tried to get a boarding pass somehow to go through, and he couldn't get one, which was a good thing. I don't know what he was planning to do with no gun, no bomb, no nothing going through the checkpoint anyway, except cause problems. But I think that the issue will be what the deputy administrator talked about this morning, sectioning off those people that we do a facial recognition and say, hey, that's a pretty good person. Let them go through this lane over here with minimal screening. And this person we don't know too much about, let's go through this lane with a little bit more screening. And here's a bad guy that we know about. And by the way, we know the bad guys. They go through this lane over here with a lot of screening. And when I mean a lot of screening, 30 minutes. So if somebody goes through, you're going to sit there and go through for 30 minutes of screening. Over in Ben Gurion Airport, it'll take maybe an hour for an individual like that.
Well, and they really wrote the book on passenger screening. You know, and I think that the security of the entire air travel system globally, I think, is quite impressive, given, you know, the pitfalls that occur. And I know that a lot of folks in the audience probably travel internationally. And, you know, when you enter the system and you go through customs and border, whatever it is you're traveling to, and you enter back in the United States, it's a good feeling to know that you're back within the secure perimeter of CONUS and within our security system.
But I think that John brought up a good point, and it's the pre-screening at other airports. So in the future, I would envision, if you have Frankfurt, for instance, screening at the same level as TSA in the United States, or Paris, or London, or whatever it is. Those people coming in, let them come in and go into the public area of the airport and go onto another airplane domestically here. We don't quite do that yet, but I think that's probably the future.
It's coming. And perhaps with the increase in technology of the biometrics, that may even facilitate that.
Correct.
Talk just a few moments, if you would, about the caliber of officer that we have on the front lines, because I often think that, you know, it's sort of like, you know, when one goes out to eat dinner or one goes and has something done, the person that's doing the work is just doing the work, and, you know, you're pressed onto your travel.
Right.
But talk about the caliber of men and women that make up the TSA at Dulles, particularly.
Yeah, so that's a great question. 44% of the team that's out there, 750 strong, I have about 650 officers that do the screening. 44% of those 650 have been there the whole time I'm there. And the other, whatever that is, 56%, have come and gone, which is amazing. I mean, that's the attrition that I have to deal with. But those 44% that are out there, I love listening to the officers when they check in on the first day. I'll ask them 3 questions. Where you live. I ask that because they have to come to work. So when there's a snowstorm, you'll hear the Washington, you know, the federal government shut down. We're not shut down. We're screening people. And so I ask them where they come in from. We have people that live in Pennsylvania, a lot out in Winchester, a lot in Maryland that come to Dulles every day religiously, it doesn't matter, and they perform their job. I ask them what they did before they came to TSA. Many are college grads. This is their first job. This is their opportunity to get into the federal government. So college grads, a lot of military, a lot of prior law enforcement that want to come in that are maybe retired and coming in, and a lot still in college. So I know that you have some of the officers out there going through associates programs.
We actually do, and if I could just elaborate on that just real quickly. One of the things, and this kind of goes back to the whole public-private partnership discussion we had with the previous panel, is that since 2015, we've had a relationship with the TSA, and we work very closely with headquarters here. And we have active cohorts that are ongoing, and we essentially developed 3 programs, 3 courses: transportation security, homeland security, and intelligence operations. They're completely closed cohort classes where no one that's not TSA is allowed into these classes because they discuss sensitive items. They don't discuss anything classified, obviously, but they're facilitated by instructors, and they then receive, college credit for it. And they actually come out the other end with an associate's degree or with a certificate in homeland and airport security. And it gives them a sense of accomplishment. And one of the things I'd like to really laud the TSA about is that they celebrate these officers who go through this training.
Yep.
And they have a little graduation ceremony for each of them. And like I said, we have an active cohort right now with 65 TSOs operating as we speak. So I think the commitment that the TSA and DHS has made to the higher education is critical. But like you said, you're getting high caliber people in the door.
Yeah, and so, but it's the human interaction between the passenger, the machine, and
Right.
our screener. I always feel bad. So if you look at an X-ray, a gun can look like that, or it can look like a gun like that. That officer has to make that determination in less than 10 seconds. So he looks at a bag, the X-ray gives him a nice clear image, and he has to determine if that's the gun or if the other one was the gun. Or he has to find a detonator. So anybody that's in the EOD world knows about detonators. It's tiny. It's a little bitty thing that detonates a bomb. If he can sit there and see a parapack and some kind of organic over here and some wires, and then he can go, let me find that detonator, that will make that bag complete for a bomb. He has about 10 seconds to do that. Now, obviously, if he sees something bad, he's going to stop it and take a closer look at it. But that's the human interaction. Are humans perfect? No. Are any of the machines perfect? No. So when you start adding all that together, I talked about the dogs. I wish they were perfect. They're not necessarily perfect, but you put the dog, the machine, the human, and all the technology we have out there, hopefully it comes to a high percentage of success rate.
And I think that's critical. The success rate, I mean, if you think about the awesome responsibility that TSOs have and as the entry point, it's critical. And if the system's integrity is based on that initial entry.
Yep.
Well, Scott, we've got about 5 minutes.
Okay, good.
And what I'd like to do is just turn it over to the audience to see if anybody in the audience has any questions for Scott. Right over here, sir. We got a mic coming your way. Come on, Sam, pick it up.
Waiting for someone on the other side of the room. On? Brett Hayden, Clear Avenue. 2 quick questions. Number 1, do you think that bad actors will try the pre-check, pre-screen, going through that route?
Yeah,
that's number 1.
Yeah, okay.
And then number 2 is, do you foresee moving checkpoints further out from the airport perimeter?
Yeah, let me talk about pre-check first. I love pre-check. It gets 220 people through an hour instead of 150, 160 through a standard lane. Will somebody try to game that someday? Maybe, but the thing is, they're still going to be, their bag is still going to be screened. They still go through either a walk-through metal detector or the AIT machine. So my confidence, that's, by the way, that's the standard screening we had before 2009. Walk-through metal detector, X-ray, explosive trace detection. So if we trusted from 2002 to 2009 that screening, we should be able to trust that for pre-check. What was the second question?
Is moving the...
moving the checkpoints out, sure. And so I always use this example, and I was corrected because I talked to the airport director of Amman, Jordan. I always heard that the screening started at 10 miles out in Jordan, and then it went to 5. And he goes, oh, not really. But you do go through checkpoints to get to the airport. I would love to have a checkpoint coming into Dulles that you went by and had a state trooper standing there with a machine gun over his back and say, can I please see your boarding pass before you get to Dulles? That's not reality. Heck, if I have a 15 or 20 minute wait, I get yelled at by passengers. If I ran my organization the way you run your checkpoint, I'd be fired. Okay, thanks, sir. Have a nice flight. But I think that you're going to see, if you mix facial recognition with moving things out, I think it'll work. So, and this is truly futuristic stuff, but the deputy administrator brought it up. You walk into the airport, you are automatically recognized somewhere. And if you're a bad actor, that bad actor is recognized as soon as they walk in, that maybe you can put police towards that individual. I would like to see checkpoints moved out further, but I think the technology of the checkpoints are going to continue to get better, so you'll see that that is the... Anybody ever hear of Inspire magazine? Mm-hmm. That's the terrorist magazine. Years ago, they said, no sense trying to get something through TSA checkpoints, they're too good. I love that. But what does that mean? They move it out. So they move it out in the public area. Belgium had the Brussels had the bomb out in the public area. That worries me. And car bombs worry me outside. So yeah, that's, yeah. Thank you. You bet, sir.
Well, we've got about 2.5 minutes left, so we have time for one more question. And I'm
going to ask some questions, though. I want to ask some questions to the audience first.
Thank you. John Good, HR Consulting. If you would just say a few more words about the impact of the changing technology on your workforce in terms of qualifications needed among your new hires, the number of people, the training, and then any efforts to reduce turnover, that 56% of your workforce that churns.
Boy, that's tough. Over at the other Marriott at Key Bridge right now, we have every federal security director meeting to talk about that. And I will be leaving here going right over there. But so, you know, a lot of the officers, they don't get paid that much. I got to admit, they just don't get paid that much. They want to go on the GS scale. We're not on the GS, the government schedule scale. We're not on that. We're on a different kind of setup. Sometimes I think money wins the day in keeping people, giving them bonuses. But I also think that as the technology gets better, it'll probably be more driven to get the people for that technology, that they'll have to drive that, and also the training associated with it. We send now, for the first time in the last 2 years, we send everybody down to FLETC in Georgia. They go down to training to start off their training. For 2 weeks, they go through basic training. It's almost like a military type training.
That's the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe.
Right, in Glencoe. And they go through basic training. They go through the technology training. They're coming back better, I think, than they used to when I first got them. We used to always do the in-house training. And it took 6 months, 7 months to get it done. Now I'm getting it done in 3 to 4 months. And they're motivated to get going. But like I said, Washington Capital Region has an awful lot of job openings for federal people. And they come into TSA Dulles, they come into TSA DCA, BWI, and they're there for 1 or 2 years. They start applying for other jobs and they go out. So I hope that answers the question that, you know, on the...
All right, Scott, so I'm going to allow you to ask the audience questions.
All right, so pretend you're the federal security director for a day, okay? And
I want to raise.
Yeah. And the Prime Minister of England, Cameron, is coming from the White House with his entourage. And Secret Service says, hey, we want to take him through the back door. We don't want to screen him. What's our answer?
No way.
Oh, man, you guys are so hard. He's the Prime Minister of England. He's coming from the White House. Are we going to screen? That's great. Screen his people. But do we screen him? No. We put him through the back door. I meet him and I say, hey, sir, Scott Johnson, Federal Security Director, follow me. And he says, hey, Scott, can I take my 5 friends with me? And I look at him, and what do I say?
No way.
Yes, sir. You can take them. They came from the White House, under armed escort, to the front door of Dulles. They walk out, they meet me, come on, let's go. We're going to screen your bags over in a different area, but you come on with me. He walked through the door, they opened the door back up, he came out and he said, you're Scott Johnson? I said, yes, sir. He said, hey, thanks a lot for not screening my people. Vice President Biden, who's walking around now, goes through Dulles. Do I screen him or not?
Well, he's probably screening your screener.
So what do you think? So Vice President Biden comes up and he says, and his team says, hey, he's coming through today at 0800 on United 123. Can you please take him through the back door? What do I do?
No.
That's your call. Sure, why not? He's the old vice president. Unless somebody has a great Tom Cruise mask from Mission Impossible on, it's probably Joe Biden. But there's other people, like the prime minister of some country like Afghanistan, or a prime minister of some other country. When they go through it, that's a tough decision. Do you let them go through the back door? I probably let them go through the back door with me escorting them, but as people, not so much. You're going to go through normal screening. So that's some of the decisions that I can make because I think we have the backgrounds, the technologies, the databases that I can look at and make a very honest decision to say, yeah, let these people go. So,
Scott, thank you so
all right.
much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you
Yes, sir.
joining us.